Hi, this is John and Ken.
And the number to call if you want to speak, 1-888-JOHN-KEN. 1-888-564-6536.
Here on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI. This is the John and Ken Show. Welcome. We are live. This isn't a rerun. We're back from vacation. Good to be here.
How are you coping?
Are you coping? Well, let me tell you. Driving in today, I'm listening to the network news, and apparently there's a pigeon dropping that's splattered outside of Kensington Palace in the shape of Princess Diana. And there are now thousands of people clustered around this pigeon dropping. Because apparently, you know how pigeon droppings are multicolored? You know,
they rainbow kind of thing?
Well, they're white, and there's grays, and there's blacks, and there's browns. So apparently the way the colors sell, it looked exactly like Princess Diana wearing a black Versace ballroom gown, I guess. Like one of those things where she went to those charities, you know?
Let me just, I'm having trouble coping. I consider whether or not I should return to work. It's just been it's been a trauma.
I tell you,
I couldn't think. I couldn't enjoy my time off. What the hell is the matter with people?
I don't know.
What I watch that thing build each day on vacation. Like, what am I missing here?
I got a story for you. I'm going to give you a brief chronology of. It was about like a 10-day vacation, 6 working days, right? And we decided to take a driving trip, an easygoing driving trip. We went to Northern California just to float around because my wife is 7 months pregnant, can't do anything strenuous. We're just going to float from these beautiful beach towns, into the wine country of Northern California. We weren't going to see anybody. We weren't going to do anything. It's just ease along, right? Had a little show on. So we went to Carmel, beautiful seaside town. Clint Eastwood used to be the mayor there.
Yes, I've been there.
It's nothing but art shops and antique shops and restaurants and beautiful beach, and it's only rich people, all this.
Yes, we prefer to be with people in our own class, don't we?
That's it. It's a perfect town for my wife. This is like her number one favorite town in the world. And then it was like, we got to dinner, pushing the baby around. He fell asleep, looking in the windows of the art shops, and I had to go to the bathroom real bad. Like real bad, I had too much wine at dinner, and I had to go. So I go to the bathroom. And I come out, and this really was like a restaurant tavern place. And I look at that TV over the bar, and there I see a little still photo of the smashed car. Oh, what's that?
That's right. It was early for you, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Right. It was like 9:30 in the evening, Pacific time. So I'm looking at the scratch there. I can't see too well with my glasses even. And then I'm looking at the little print at the bottom. It's like Princess Diana dies in car crash. Whoa!
That's right. She was dead by then.
She was already dead. This was hours after the story broke.
That's right. I beat you to it.
Oh, see, yeah.
I beat you to it. We've been out to dinner. I was in the Eastern time zone. And, the only reason I would turn on TV on a Saturday night is because one of the reasons I went east is to go to the U.S. Open tennis tournament, which I did that day. So I wanted to watch it before we went out to dinner. We came home after a long day. We were there until like 8 o'clock at night. And I was just going to watch the night matches on TV, and I'm flipping around, and I see little MSNBC, the one that nobody watches.
Yeah.
And I see like this still photo, and it says on the bottom, Princess Diana car crash. I'm like, oh man, what the heck is this? But she was still alive at that point, according to reports. And then we went out to dinner, and of course, everyone, people came to the door. I was staying at a friend's apartment. I said, oh, breaking news. Princess Diana car crash. Like, what? And then after dinner, we got in a taxi cab, and then the reports came over the radio. She was dead, which was now like 12 midnight Eastern time. So I was shocked. I ran out screaming.
No, I ran out and told my wife, I go, Princess Diana's dead. And she was upset. My wife actually cried. She immediately cried over it. Well, and that was like the first indication that things were going to be weird, because I didn't expect her to cry. She really cried. And I'm thinking, uh-oh. Because I was shocked because, Diana was like this thing out there. I don't have any reverence for her, any particular like or dislike.
No, you've never been a real fan of the whole royal family.
No, the whole thing is stupid to me, but she's out there, and I never bought a magazine because her picture was on it, but it's, a little blurb appeared in the gossip column I read. I was like, oh, okay, and I'd move on.
And we just started noticing Dodie.
Yeah,
I was talking about that model that sued him, and I brought up his name one day. We were both laughing. I was saying, Doty.
Yeah.
Every time the name is Doty.
No, he was some weirdo Egyptian billionaire playboy moron.
Pseudo movie producer.
Yeah, I read he used to rent out Beverly Hills mansions for at $20,000 a month and not pay. So, he was like a typical jerk. Typical rich boy jerk. And a typical dead rich boy jerk.
She cried.
Well, so we went back to the hotel room, and I sat there, and, you watch it's like obligatory now, you watch the continuous coverage. I watched the Sky News from Britain. We watched for a couple hours, and then it got repetitive, as those things do, and I decided I was going to go to bed. And she wouldn't go to bed. There's another sign. It's like, oh, there's something wrong here. And then, she's waking up in the middle of the night thinking about it. Next morning, the TV's on. By the next morning, I was done. I had mourned. Whatever minimal, tiny bit of mourning that I did, it was done. And I wanted to get on. It was another bright, beautiful day in Carmel. I wanted to, just... Every time we went back to the hotel room, she turned on the TV. Every time. And it got to the point where one night, she turned on, like, the 36th, the Dateline special on Diana. And I had to leave the room. Well, the thing is, when you're in a hotel room, you can't go into the next room because it's just one room. I walked the streets for some time because I couldn't stand hearing about Diana anymore. And I'd turn on the radio, and Diana was all over the place. And I'd phone into my message machine, and there's people at the station wanting to know if I wanted to come into work. And my wife even said, "Are you going to go in? Are you going to go? This is a big story." I said, "This is my last vacation of the year. There is no way in hell because some idiot got drunk in Paris and Diana's dead, but I'm going to go spend a whole week talking about the stupid dead princess. This is like the most annoying, boring, ridiculous, idiotic story of all time, and I'm not going to sit there and talk about it." Honest to God. But it went on and on. And so, we drive around during the day, and I'd turn on the radio stations, listen to some of the idiot talk show hosts, and they all sounded pathetic. And the callers who called in sounded even worse. And then I start seeing the crowd forming around Kensington Palace, and I'm thinking the whole world's gone nuts. There's nothing to Diana. She never did anything. I kept asking my wife. We had this debate all week. My whole vacation was haunted by Diana. I kept saying, what did she do? She's treated like an actress, but at least actresses act. She's treated like a rock star, but at least rock stars sing. She doesn't make anything. She doesn't have any talent. She's not particularly bright. She apparently threw up a lot every time she was under pressure. And she obviously married or fell in love with the worst mutants that the planet has to offer. So what's the deal? She's pretty, but she's not really sexy. I never had a fantasy about her. I never thought, gee, boy, she looked like one of those weird, icy, princess types. And what is a princess anyway, exactly? I started thinking about this. What is a princess? They can't make any law. They can't declare any war. They can't tax anyone. They can't kill anyone. They can't do anything. It's just a bunch of weird inbred people. And so she married into the family, and they didn't like her, and so she broke up, and so what? So what? Then my wife says, well, she was very compassionate. And I said, so what? A lot of people are compassionate. And then I said this. I swear I said this. Nobody's going to believe me. I said, if Mother Teresa died, then I could understand. There's compassion.
And that happened.
3 days later, it happens, right? I hear it on the radio. I go tell my wife, I go, Mother Teresa died. And my wife goes, oh, you're kidding. I said, no. She goes, you're making it up. She thought I was still continuing the argument. I said, no, really, she died. She goes, no, come on, stop it. And for the life of me, I've been asking people all week, and I know this seems to be a woman thing more than a man thing. Although I heard some really idiotic men calling in and blubbering, too. And I'm thinking, what? She did nothing. At least models. Oh, all right, going back to the compassion thing. All right, so she shows up at benefits, right, and draws money. Well, did she ever change, like, the diaper of an AIDS patient? Did she ever actually minister any charity? Did she get her hands dirty ever? Or does she get dressed up a few times a year, get the free dinner, gives a speech for 5 minutes, a stupid platitude to everybody? Oh, it's beautiful.
She used to show up and touch people.
She touched it. Yeah,
well, she touched AIDS patients when nobody else would there in the 80s. I got to tell you that much. Nobody else would, and she actually showed up and she was holding them.
So, but I'm thinking the compassion argument is what people want to use as a fig leaf, as a cover, to make it seem legitimate that there's a real reason that they're crying. The real reason, I suppose, is that she's really pretty. She belongs to this phony monarchy, and people have healthy, pathetic lives.
All right, the only thing more humorous to me than what happened last week is what you're doing now, because to get mad over this is kind of silly, too. The bottom line is, there is some sadness because she had 2 kids, all right? Anytime a person dies and has 2 kids, and it's not a criminal or some other sick, immoral person, it's kind of sad.
Oh, yeah, those 2 kids are going to inherit $10 billion. I feel real bad.
But they liked her. I think they really liked her.
So? Let the people lose their mothers. Their mothers dying every day.
I think if she had died, they probably wouldn't have blinked. But because she died, it probably meant something.
Come on, tell me.
And whether it's true or not, she's killed basically either by a drunken driver or a bunch of stupid photographers. Whichever side you believe, that's also kind of sad. So for that reason, there is some sadness. But Tom, it's reached a level that I couldn't understand either.
People are still blubbering, and I don't understand the whole British culture at all. I am completely baffled. They are, they're standing outside, they're going, the Queen, when the Queen came to talk to them, did you see the photos in the paper of all the subjects, their eyes bulging out? Imagine being a subject to some weird, bitter old lady in a bad black outfit, and she came out to talk to her subjects. And she actually gave a speech, and she referred to them as a subject. Somebody called me a subject, I'd punch her in the mouth. Oh, God. I'm sorry, this has been building up all week.
Yeah, no, you're going to... I don't see why Port's getting even angry over it, too.
This is what despairs me about human nature.
You know the old line about turn it off if you don't like it. Don't read it if you don't like it.
I kept turning the thing on. And then people were calling me.
Why are you yelling at her?
Everybody I talked to here at the station, oh, you missed the big story last week. You know, I was talking to half a dozen people this morning at the station. Oh, you missed the big story. Like, shut up with your big story.
Nobody said that to me. God. Well, first of all, I have to tell you, I looked. We got to get one important thing out of the way first. Sean and Ken have their annual edition of the Ghoul Pool, where listeners called in and picked the people they thought would die in 1997. We do this at the beginning of the year, and I keep a list, and nobody had Princess Di.
Nobody, huh?
No, I looked it up right away.
That would have been a lot of points, too.
Even my father asked me that. My father really loves this game. I was on vacation, I saw my parents, and they're like, did anybody win the Ghoul Pool for Di?
7 points it would have been.
That had to be. She would
have been a blowout.
And healthy. Would have been a blowout.
Would have been just a slam dunk blowout.
All right, when we come back, I want to tell you, I was completely in another world from you. I was on the East Coast. I was in New York, which is like tabloid capital of the country. It can't beat England, but it was really wild what I read. I was just hysterical. Unlike you, I was laughing almost the whole week. I thought the whole thing was just so fascinating, the study of psychological nonsense. But I have to tell you some of the stories. And some of the things I heard.
I guess there's a difference between you and I.
Yeah, I guess so.
I see too much.
I can just brush it off and laugh while you're just like building anger.
Because I can't stand human nature. I just can't. I can't take it. We got to take a break, and we'll talk more. This is the John and Ken Show.
At 6:18, reminding you to check on the G-Man, weekdays 10 to 2 on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI.
Bill Geis is with CBS News, and he's here with us now. Good morning, Mr.
Good morning, man. So it's just interesting being the oldest person at a rock concert for the first time. My brother-in-law's a little bit younger than I was, but we're wandering around trying to meet chicks at the rock concert. and I'm thinking in the back of my mind, now what if he does pick up some girls and we have to take the baby seat out of the back of the Taurus? Will they understand?
On the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI.
Here's that famous FYI in the sky with another time.
This is the John and Ken Show. Back live, back from vacation.
Now, you were it, Carmel, California?
Right.
Little resort town. I happened to be in New York because I did want to go to the U.S. Open. I did make it this year. First, I lived there many years. I never went, so I went this year. But, you know, it happened pretty much at the beginning of the vacation, the Di death, and I just knew right away that the New York tabloids would just go wild. So in a sense, I felt like a kid waking up Sunday morning on Christmas, trying to go out and read what they wrote. And I was writing my own little headlines the night before, you know, because at first it was just Dodie that was dead but not Di, and I was thinking maybe the headlines, since they were both dead, would be Dodie, Di, died. You have to put a comma in there.
Dodie, die, comma, die.
Or it'd be Dodie, comma, die, die. Or Dodie, I don't know. I was
disappointed when Dodie, comma, die, die.
I was disappointed when, like, the New York Post the next day, all they had was Princess Diana dead. But of course, they had the picture of the car right there on the front page, all smashed up, and it was a exciting moment. And then, so I'm flipping through the pages. It's pretty funny, and it's sad that she died. I actually thought it was kind of sad, but what happened the first day is went out for breakfast, pick up some bagels, and go past this building, and there's all these flowers already. Well, what is this? And I look up close, and of course it is tributes to Diana. And it turns out it's the British consulate in New York City. walked into it by accident. Had no idea. And there's already TV crews there. What was wild is that 2 days later, on the news, the line had grown. I guess because people watched TV and saw where it was and realized what it was.
They probably didn't know what a British consulate was until that day.
The flowers, the tributes. I mean, by Tuesday, there were lines around the block. People, and now I'm starting to get, oh my God, I can't believe this. And then I'm reading the tabloids, and there's already a guy writing a column, and he's working up the movie version of Diana. And he's thinking about Macaulay Culkin as one of the kids, and Antonio Banderas as Baby. He's got Lynn Redgrave as Fergie. And then I'm watching TV, and I'm flipping around New York TV stations, and of course, after they got through the main stuff about Diana, they're like, when we come back, we'll talk about that void in the fashion world that Diana reached. I got you to laugh. I didn't think that.
Void in the fashion world.
Yeah, that's a major void. And I'm watching this over the course of the days, and it starts off, I don't know how we would have done the radio show if we'd done it, but you know, it started off with the horrible paparazzi, right?
Right.
And it moved to the horrible drunk guy. Right. And then the father comes, Dodie's father, and says, no, he wasn't drunk. I'm like, wow, this movie, this story just keeps bouncing back and forth each day. And I'm thinking, unlike you, of course people are talking about it, because it's got all these elements. And then, of course, my friends and I were walking around New York City, and we're laughing, but we're getting into this mode after a few days of, maybe she isn't dead. And you know that was going to start. Maybe she staged this to get away from everybody. And one of my friends worked up this whole scenario of how she did it and where she is now. And then I read on the internet, there's a whole bunch of people working up the same theories that the British royalty actually had her killed because she was dating an Egyptian.
Apparently, Muslim and Egyptian Arab newspapers were writing editorials saying that this was set up by the British monarchy because of their anti-Semitism against Arabs.
And then it's like, you know, I wasn't really watching TV after a couple of days, so I run into people and they're telling me, oh, well, the bodyguard may talk, but he lost his tongue. I'm like, oh my God, did he lose his tongue? No, he didn't. That's not true. His face was smashed, but he didn't lose his tongue.
See,
and then there was a report that all of their stuff was stolen. Someone robbed Diana's car of jewelry and money. And that turned out to be nonsense. This thing really has a life of its own. It's fascinating to watch human behavior.
All right, we come back. I'm just curious. Was I the only guy in the world to feel this way? I felt like the only person on the planet who felt like the whole thing was stupid. This is the John and Ken Show.
Want to spend the night together? Find out how. Wednesday morning in the 7 a.m. hour on the New Talk Radio 1230, FYI.
Know what's hot and be a hit. This is the John and Ken Show. So I was really thrilled to be on vacation, actually, just so you know. And I was.
Yeah, I thought you would come back and do a show or two, but you were just too angry, huh?
No, I wasn't angry. I was just irritated. I thought it was fun.
You wouldn't know how to talk about it for very long.
Well, I understood she's a news figure, and I understood the angles that she talked about, you know, with the drunken driver and the photographers.
And the photographers,
okay.
right.
I got all that.
Two kids.
So, I mean, I could have kicked that around for a day. But when there was this outpouring of gushing emotion,
these people show up crying.
I'm left cold. I don't know how to deal with that. I could not. And when they start debating the minutia of whether Charles is going to be king or not, and whether he'll be there's something. There's a thing was in the paper. Yeah. Tony Blair, the Prime Minister of England,
right? I saw
he was asked, "Do you think Charles will be a good king?" And he said, "Yes, I will." And
or should we pass over him and make William king?
Here's my question.
Responsibilities are awesome.
And maybe some of you people who've been blubbering for a week and a half can tell me, how would we know if he's a good king or a bad king? What do you do how do you rate a king of England? They don't do anything, and they have no power. They're figureheads. They just sit there like inbred doofuses. So, if he was a good king, how would I know?
Oh, you're right. They could just bring that Queen Mother back. What is she, like 99 by now, and just make her the throne? It wouldn't make any difference. And you know, it would make no sense. Who cares?
The Queen's speech? Did you see the Queen? I saw it on the news later, because I kind of wanted to see what she looked like. I wasn't sure what she looked like, and she's standing there looking like, you know, somebody's aunt.
She's got to stick up the butt.
Oh, God, does she have a stick up the butt. And I'm thinking, this woman really believes in her queenness, you know?
So they're supposed to withhold this tradition.
No, she acted like she really was the queen and that it really was important.
Oh, I think she could send men to war and
yeah, it's like
change economies.
She talks about her subjects as if she really is better than everybody else. And then I'm thinking,
over there, they make a big deal of that stuff.
What's wrong with them?
You know what's wrong with them, John? I can tell you because I thought about this. You can say it's what's wrong with them, but it's also the psychology. That used to be some big empire in the world, was it not?
Used to be a biggie, yeah.
They're bitter. Now, hold on. There's a lot of psychology involved here.
Yeah.
They lost all that. And she and that the inbred family are the only remnants of what was once, the world's greatest empire. So they hang on to that because symbolically it makes them feel like they matter. You see where this is coming from?
Yeah, it's really
I thought about this.
They're really deluded, though. I mean,
They're really
it's over.
deluded because the rest of us think this is hysterical.
They're deluded.
However, 50 million people in this country watched the funeral, so obviously this people in this country get some fascination from it.
See, now the British have their own, national mental problem there, and I've only been to London once. I can't say it's a beautiful city, but I don't understand.
It's one of my favorites.
Oh, it's a great city.
It's well run. It's mostly clean.
But American people gaping at this stuff.
What's that about?
What?
It's celebrity.
Yeah, but it's celebrity. I mean, to me, it was like Zsa Zsa Gabor dying.
Another Hollywood Square.
Yeah. That was the importance to me. It was like, oh, Zsa Zsa Gabor died in a car crash. I'd probably watch that for an hour on TV and then go to sleep and laugh the next morning about it. Anyway, there's people on the phone here. Mark, you're on the John and Ken Show.
Hi, John.
Yes.
Yeah, you've been saying what I've been thinking all week. Diana struck me as kind of a female Forrest Gump, especially given her ability to be photographed with all kinds of famous people. And I think another reason for her popularity with the trailer park crowd who buys all of these tabloids is that the British monarchy is probably the last symbol of white supremacy in the world.
That's what I was wondering. I was wondering about the trailer park angle here.
What's that?
Well, I mean, thanks for the call, Mark.
What does that mean?
Well, how, they sell maybe, I don't know, a couple million National Enquirers a week.
Oh, in this country.
Yeah, and that's the National Enquirer is like the standard tabloid in America. That's only a couple of million. And I read the thing sometimes when I'm in the grocery line, and it's pretty funny. But there's people who read it and they take it seriously. And I always wondered, we make jokes about the trailer park people are into this.
Yeah,
but this seems to go beyond just the trailer park people.
Oh, it goes beyond the trailer.
Yeah. So at first,
the trailer park people are only interested in the gory angle. They want to see the pictures of her dead body in the car.
Right. They're kind of secretly happy that she's dead,
and they might believe the conspiracy.
Right. Yeah.
No. There's a lot of people that they just thought this woman was something special, and they're not trailer park people.
No, I know. My wife's cousin is visiting, and she came over the house over the weekend, and sitting in the pool, and she and my wife were going on and on for a couple hours about it.
Well, there was a bit of Diana there's a bit of you in this, because the only thing I could think of, the only connection I could make is that she was kind of like trying to stick it to royalty, and a lot of people in Britain want to do the same thing, and some people here do too. She was kind of like the rebel, and I think that appealed to people. The rest of them were stuck up inbred, and she was kind of a down-to-earth rebel.
I guess why do people care? Why did she marry into the stupid family? What did she think she was getting into?
I don't know. She had a bad childhood, and it's like this was going to help.
Yeah,
I didn't even know she had such a bad childhood.
No, I didn't know anything about her. I didn't know her parents broke up when she was a kid, and
I didn't know either.
But
to think that this would help her escape is unbelievable.
So, and when she was 20 and she got married, everybody already knew that the royal family was a bunch of stuck-up inbreds. What did she think was going to happen? Charles must have been must have been a bore 20 years ago, too.
Yes.
John, you're on the John and Ken Show.
I think last week, to me, the most significant thing is that the British people were really turning against the Queen.
Okay,
I never thought that would ever happen. They were demanding the Queen to say, hey, you have to show respect to Diana.
Yeah, even if they beheaded her,
we're going to turn against you.
Even if they beheaded her, how does this all matter?
Well, I think it's a real historic turning point in English history.
It's a revolution against what? There's
no significance.
There's nothing.
There's more to it than just the Queen and Prince Philip.
Too much Charlotte.
There's a whole group of people in England.
Thanks for the call.
Hey, what does it serve?
Look at the weird people who are calling about this. These are the kind of calls, whenever I turn on the radio,
he sounded like one of those blubbering TV analysts. Did you see how many people actually have titles like Royal Biographer and Royal Watcher?
Oh, what a bunch of twits those people are.
Oh, my God, I can't believe how many there were.
All these bald, bespeckled, pasty-faced English guys, and they're all royal experts. And I'm thinking, who wants to spend your life as a royal expert? And they spend their lives staring at the royals in public, looking to see who's drooling and whose eyes are twitching, and they make some sort of translation out of that. It's like, who are these people? I mean, on that night, the first night after she died, these bald-headed guys were on for hours. With their stupid English accents, they're blubbering away about what does this mean? What is Diana's legacy? What legacy? What?
And for this country, it makes no sense. These are the idiots that the people that founded our country were running from. They left all that royalty nonsense behind and fought a war against it.
Hey, so let's just, let's kill this stuff. I know. You forget about the Revolutionary War? We murdered a whole bunch of British people to get away from the inbred monarchy. And now you're blubbering over it.
You think if Diana had died in 1776, anybody in this country would have given a damn and would have cheered?
No, they would have cut her head off, stuck it on a stick, and ran around the town square, saying we killed the princess. America is free. Back when Americans made sense, 240 years ago, this country made sense. They realized the monarchy was a load of bull, and they did everything they could to break away and kill anyone who got in the way. And now there's people, 3 o'clock in the morning, blubbering over some dead princess. And I'm just... I just trying to understand.
But honestly, do you think that a 15-year-old boy like William's up to being king? That's a big issue.
If I was him, I'd get all that
responsibility.
Yeah, it's like, people were going up.
See the schedule. Wake up, have a royal breakfast, shake a few hands at some meaningless ceremony, have a royal lunch, take a nap, and then play some croquet, have a royal tea. That's the schedule pretty much, isn't it? Shake some more hands at another worthless ceremony.
And then when you're 21, they'll bring you an array of bimbos, like Diana was, and say, well, all right, you know what? Who do you want to impregnate so we can get the next king in 30 years?
This varies none from our discussions we've had on athletes and entertainers who make a lot of money. This just proves that when you have a lot of money and nothing to do, you get in trouble. Look at all the royals that have been in trouble the past 20 years. For cheating on their husbands and wives and for getting all sorts of problems. They got nothing to do, so they might as well just cause problems.
Diana, the perfect
screwing around.
And she's supposed to be this great mother. What was she doing in Paris with some weirdo Egyptian playboy with a drunk guy driving the car? That's not what my mother used to do. Loving mother. My wife doesn't do that on Saturday nights.
She doesn't?
No. Well, she used to, but she doesn't. Julia, you're on the John and Ken Show.
Boy, you are just being really hard on this poor woman.
I'm sorry, it built up for 10 days.
I think, she could have been a really austere, royal, noble person and kind of ignored any kind of social obligation. And I think she really did try to do some genuine things for people.
But did she do any more than a million other people who actually,
Oh, yes, she did, because she had the presence and because she brought with her the power and the dignity and the...
What power? What power?
The power of that royalty. I mean,
they had no power.
Oh, no, she didn't have that kind of power. She had the people power. She could get people connected. It's kind of like,
why did you go to... Well, she did. I guess the theory is that because the media... Well, Julia, you are a perfect example. Hold on. I get all this dribble. You can't tell me what she did. She did not...
I can explain. I think she's trying to explain. When the media's following her all around, she could give some publicity to causes nobody else is paying attention.
Absolutely.
I guess that's the theory.
What, AIDS? Everybody was paying attention to AIDS.
Pretty early. She started there in the 80s when it was still like, let's just send those people to an island.
Okay, so without her, we'd have no treatments, right?
No.
Come on. How about the scientists who discover the treatments? They're going to die and they're going to get 2 paragraphs in the back of the paper.
I think you're, the other thing is I think you're being too hard on her for, can you remember how mature you were at 19? I mean, she got into this whole thing when she was 19. She made some very big public mistakes.
I can guarantee you I would not have married Prince Charles at 19.
I guarantee you that nobody's going to be crying at his funeral. But,
no, I can't wait for him to die. I'm hoping he goes like, I want to get rid of all the royals to die real soon. So then they'll all die out and there'll be no successors and we won't have to hear about this ever again.
Well, I think she grew up an awful lot, and I think that over time she really matured and was...
Yeah, that's how everybody does. I mean...
Well, but she had a special ability because of her her place in life to bring more.
All right, more vague platitudes. Julia, thanks.
Well, yeah, she did show up at a lot of things. I don't remember what else. I guess she went to a lot of poor neighborhoods and then held children's hands and supposedly donations poured in. Since she's dead, did you read about all the money that's coming in? It's like $1 million a day or more to these charities.
We didn't need her to be alive to get money to the charity. If she died a while ago, these charities would have conquered their diseases a long time back.
You always have an answer, don't you? You shouldn't get yourself all bent up.
I know I shouldn't.
We're going to get that song now, that Goodbye English Road.
Oh, for God's sake!
Candle in the Wind.
You know they're
Everybody's playing that.
They're gonna release that as a single.
Yeah, it's going to the top of the
It's
chart.
going to be on the radio every 3 minutes.
I've already heard it today several times.
Oh, for God! He just recorded it.
He chickened out, didn't he? What? He changed the word. And you know one of the words he left out? The press still hounded you.
Yeah.
And what about the other word? It was a collection of things like with no one to turn to. Remember Marilyn Monroe? Everybody around her were. They could have attacked the royals nicely.
Well, he is a sissy. Let's remember that. And I can say that accurately. We got to take a break. This is the John and Ken Show.
At 6:48. And we'd like to remind you to catch Bruce Williams tonight at 7 on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI.
For your information, AM 1230 FYI presents the G. Gordon Liddy recipe for pumpkin pie. At 1600 hours, approach the farm from the west. Create a diversion in the pig pen. The farmer is distracted.
What the grand deal's going on out here?
Make your way to the pumpkin patch. Sever the pumpkin from the vine using gloves and piano wire. Cover the head of the pumpkin with burlap and move it to an undisclosed location. Keep the pumpkin without food for several days. When the pumpkin's will is broken and it has given up, cut it open and use your bare hands to pull out the dust. G. Gordon Liddy, midday on AM 1230 FYI. Radio's answer to covert action.
This is the John and Ken Show. Yes, we are back from vacation, and no, we didn't wish we were working last week. We were both very glad not to be a part of all that idiocy.
Well, I was too far away, but I thought maybe you would.
No. Yeah.
No.
But no. Just no way. I knew instantly I wanted nothing to do with this. Let's go to Dan. You're on the John and Ken Show.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
One thing that bugged me about this whole thing was the ridiculous estimates of how many people watched the funeral.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this
Oh,
up.
man, I don't know who's making up these numbers, but I've seen newspapers estimate that like 2.5 billion people
Yeah,
watched
that's what I saw. 2.5 billion is the estimate for the world viewing of the funeral.
First of all,
how many people are on the planet?
5.5. 6 billion or something like that.
First of all, it's almost half the population of the world.
There is no rating system in China or India where there's at least 2.5 billion people.
Exactly.
They don't have Nielsen boxes in the mud huts in China.
But somebody just made up that number, and it's repeated by everybody. Plus, half the world's in the dark half the time. And
Well, it said 187 countries got access to the funeral.
And I think like 50 million people in the United States watched it. I mean, that's a country that's pretty much interested in the event. I mean, that's such a seemingly low number.
That's only 1/5. That's 1/5 of the people, right? Something like that.
No, that's an entirely made-up statistic. There's no way to measure it. There's no way to prove it. What it probably said is that there were 2 billion people in the range of a TV signal, if they had a television.
It's kind of like the estimate of 1 billion people watching the Oscars every year. It's that kind of number that's just floated out there that's made up by some marketing guy.
Yeah, because he's going to challenge it. There's no way to prove it or disprove it.
Well, I challenge it.
Thank you for calling, and I'm glad you challenged it.
The first moonwalk got 1 billion people. The wedding got 600 million. That's an estimate, though. Some estimates range as high as 750 million for their wedding. Barcelona Olympics, 2 billion. World Cup final, 2 billion. Super Bowl, 37.
2 billion do not watch the Super Bowl or the stupid World Cup.
Well, the World Cup is because everybody in the world plays soccer.
Not everybody watches 2 billion.
That's what they have for the World Cup finals of 1994. I don't know what teams played, but that must have been a big. Well, if it was like China that played it, they showed it all over the country.
Oh,
that could get you there.
They don't even have electricity in most areas. Like in places like China or in Africa or in India. All right, they're squatting in holes when they have to poop. Hey, they got cable TV now, you're telling me.
Some of the stories I read after I got back in papers were that, there were lights on in people's houses and they got up early to watch the funeral, depending on what time zone you're in. But there was another story I read. I guess some local priest got to go to the funeral. So when he came back to his local parish for Sunday services, he was like this star. It was a sellout. The church was filled when they wanted to hear him talk about Diana. No, I'm serious. I thought this was so weird. I'm watching this, so they sent the camera crew there to film him as he did his sermon, talking about what he saw over there and how the people of England reacted. Who are these people? And, you can pick up any police blotter and check out all the people that died and look in the obituaries, and there's nothing going on for them.
Shelley, here on the John and Ken Show. Got less than a minute.
Hi. I hope I can explain to you some of the emotion. I wasn't a fan, and I'm shocked at my own reaction, but I have cried most of the week.
There's something wrong with you.
No, I think what it is basically empathy. I don't care that she was a star. I think of the pain people feel that don't have her anymore, like the boys, and I think of her being so young, and she wouldn't have chosen.
You don't cry for anybody else who loses their mother. These guys are going to have $10 billion to spend. It's not so bad.
Well, they're stuck with that stuffy queen.
And they can always leave. If I was them, I'd leave. As soon as I was 18, I'd say, see you guys.
I hope they will, but I know I saw clips of her hugging them, and you could tell how much she loved them and they loved her, and I just feel empathy for them.
No, you don't feel empathy for anybody else. That's my whole thing. You never can feel empathy. This is the John and Ken Show.
We're one big bad mama jamma. KFI Los Angeles, more stimulating talk radio.
Hillary Clinton's heading off to another funeral. Good afternoon. I'm Terry Rayoma. This is the 4 o'clock news on KFI. And Washington remembers Mother Teresa. We'll tell you more after we check your traffic. KFI is the talk station that does.
We come back. I think we've all moved on past Diana, right? I think we're all collectively fed up with Diana. And those of you who are offended by any Diana comments, you're probably not listening anymore, right?
The letters still come in.
No, there's still letters. Oh, I'm getting more and more email now thanking us for being a breath of fresh air about and being realistic about the Diana phenomenon.
Can you feel better about yourself, Mr. Corbett? You have to keep telling us how you're getting positive email.
I keep mentioning the negative email.
Insecure?
No. Just.
I've only seen one good one.
Give it a scorecard.
5 nasty letters.
Oh, there's more. Well, you read the email now. You get a different.
Oh, now you're saying that the computer people are probably more sophisticated and brighter, and they would email rather than write a letter. Letter writers are probably in some other century.
I don't know. Did I say that? I might say that. Anyway, Saturday, the front page of the New York Times Saturday. Front page of the New York Times. Diana's death resonates with women in therapy. This is very funny. And we're going to read it to you when we come back, all right?
Women in therapy is funny?
Yeah. Diana's death resonating with women in therapy is very funny.
You have reached a low. People in therapy are funny.
We're going to probably even hit a new low then in about 5 minutes. This is the John and Ken Show.
At 6:18, reminding you to check on the G-Man. Weekdays 10 to 2 on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI.
Remember when you and a bunch of your friends
Piled into the radio 1230 FYI. This is the John and Ken Show. John Cobell and Ken Shampoo.
And if you want to talk to us, tell everybody what you have to say. The number is 1-888-JOHN-KEN. That's 1-888-564-6536.
I know most of you are probably sick of the Diana now. But this has to be read. Because I was laughing out loud. Front page New York Times. Special boxed article. Headline says, Diana's death resonates with women in therapy. My first reaction was, well, at least they're in therapy. Let me read you this, just a few paragraphs out of this. This week, when women went to their therapists in New York City and its suburbs, an unlikely visitor often sat invisible, yet intensely present in an extra chair. She was Diana, Princess of Wales, the preoccupation of many female patients who were stunned by the power of their reaction to her death, unable to talk of anything else, obsessed with reading every word and watching every newscast, and dismayed that the men in their life hadn't a clue as to what so moved them.
Oh, is your wife in therapy?
No.
But she was puzzled by the fact that you didn't seem to move.
There was a chasm between us for a few days. There was definitely a breach. Not an angry breach, just a puzzling breach. According to a clinical psychologist named Stephen Tuber at the City University of New York, quote, she, meaning Diana, is a magnet for all their issues, a reflection of them on a large scale. He was one of the scores of therapists who called Diana a perfect transference symbol, a blank screen on which women could not resist projecting their fantasies and fears. Even women who disdain the celebrity culture, who would never confess to reading People magazine or watching lifestyles of the rich and famous, devoted entire hours and hundreds of hard-earned dollars to dissecting the parts in Diana's life that resonated for them with their psychotherapist. Said one clinical psychologist, Brenda Berger, quote, she spoke to their woundedness and to their battle to be heard and to be loved. Men didn't get it, both male and female therapists said, making the death of Diana yet another skirmish in America's gender wars. Therapists said that the few men who raised the issue at all sympathized with Prince Charles, who they thought was probably nagged to get in touch with his feelings. And they mocked Diana for her foolish psychobabble and embarrassing intensity.
A lot of people actually see comparisons between themselves, male or female, between themselves and Charles and Diana. Huh?
Well, they're in therapy, you know?
Well, yeah, she had a lot of problems, and I'm sure people who are in therapy can relate to him. I guess he was so cold and kind of distant that some men think that that's the way we are, live with it.
The New York Times interviewed more than 40 therapists. Only 2 had heard no talk of Diana, and both of those therapists were men.
All across the country they interviewed?
Well, they interviewed in the New York metropolitan area.
Oh. What did they have? 14,000 showed up yesterday for the Diana Memorial?
Central Park. For vast numbers of women, Diana was them. There she was, despite her diamond tiara, scarred by her parents' broken marriage, wed to a man who didn't love her, humiliated by a lover, rejected by a censorious mother-in-law, depressed and bulimic, paying desperate visits to spiritual healers, rebelling against the constraints of the royal family, balancing motherhood and a new romance.
You know, that really laid it out. You had about 12 problems right in there for, and any one of them a person could relate to.
Right.
Forgot about the mother-in-law thing and the bad marriage and the lover who burned her. Yeah, you're right. There's a lot there.
A psychologist named Walter Spear.
I didn't study her life closely enough to know all that right off the bat.
I know. Because, I don't know her, so I don't care. Walter Spear, a psychologist, said she was trying so hard to make her relationships work, fit in with what people expected of her, and also be herself. That's the quintessential female dilemma.
Maybe some women in therapy might want to call up and explain it to you.
Maybe I ought to get I'm sorry, I knocked my own microphone off. We got to take a break. This is the John and Ken Show.
The news. Talk Radio 1230 FYI. 1230 FYI.
This is the John and Ken Show. We were talking about the front page of the New York Times Saturday. Diana's death resonates with women in therapy. And then those 14,000 people who showed up at Central Park over the weekend. They were overwhelmingly women, according to reports. And it says here that men didn't get it.
Baffled.
And they go through a list of her problems.
I forgot, she had just been another celebrity who actually had a very happy life, a good marriage to Charles, 2 wonderful kids, a great relationship with the Queen. And then probably her death, while still tragic, would not be mourned as much by a lot of people.
See, I never connected with her.
You connect with her problems.
I never connected with her problems. And I guess
a lot of people
did. A lot of women did. And in fact, they have examples here.
People are so much more unhappy than I ever imagined sometimes.
Yeah, and I guess it's very important when they find somebody in the news who has their same problem. It gets them excited, and it bonds them with the celebrity.
What's the divorce rate? Still pretty high in this country, right? And all of those people probably have problems somewhat related to the ones that you go through here. That Diana had.
So anyway, we were wondering, those of you who are still tolerating us, if there was a specific problem in Diana's life that related to your specific problem in your own life, if you could call in and make the connection for us.
What resonated with you?
Right. Which of her
experience did you relate to of hers?
You don't have to be in therapy. Although, if you are in therapy, all the better. But we got her parents' broken marriage. We got the humiliation by her lover. Remember that guy who what did he? It was something with horses.
James Hewitt.
Yeah. He like had a
trainer.
Yeah.
No, what was he?
Riding instructor, I think he was.
Oh, maybe he was. Right.
And he had an affair with Diana, and they wrote a book about it. Went to Charles, who did not love her.
And he dumped her too, right?
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. See, I never followed this stuff.
I mean, but he did end up writing a book about her after, she spilled a lot of intimate stuff to him. Right. He got rich off of her.
Rejected by the mother-in-law, married to a man who never loved her, depressed, bulimic, running around to psychics and spiritual healers, rebelling against the constraints of the family, trying to balance motherhood and a new romance. I guess, that's a big grab bag there, and she had it all. So I guess for every problem she had, that connected her with millions of more people, right?
Oh, yeah.
She just had a bad childhood, or, parents' bad marriage. It's like, all right, And that's probably something that I don't think everybody knew about. Right? I never knew. I didn't know anything about her parents. But, the stuff.
No wonder she didn't resonate with you,
No.
Do you believe you have a good marriage?
Well, let me go through this. My parents had a good marriage,
Well, you complain about your childhood sometimes, though, and she had a bad childhood. Did he resonate with you?
No, I guess she didn't have the same problems. I'm wed to a woman who does love me. I believe I was ever humiliated by a lover, at least not publicly, perhaps privately.
Clothes off?
Well, there was some specific episodes maybe where I could recall humiliation, but it's nothing anybody knows about. I've never gone to a psychic, though. I get along fairly well with my mother-in-law. I have been depressed, but not been bulimic. I've never tried to balance motherhood and a new romance. Now they have specific examples here. A Manhattan psychologist said one patient talked about Diana's trouble finding the right guy. See, that's what this woman couldn't find the right guy, kept,
Wow, look at that. That crosses married and single women.
Yeah.
Single women who've never been married can say they just can't find the right guy, and married women can relate to her problems with Charles, a man who never loved her.
Another described Diana as an abused child trapped in a loveless family. That was her connection, because I guess this patient felt abused and in a loveless family. A third said she was trying to unentrap herself. She thought Diana was trying to unentrap. You understand that?
Yes. She was trying to escape from her tragic life and all the people around her that were sinking her.
One patient mentioned...
That's what Dodie was going to do.
One patient mentioned the apparent recklessness of a mother getting in a car with a drunken driver. I thought that was amusing that wasn't played up. Everybody was babbling about her motherhood. Gee. How many mothers,
He looked fine in the video. He didn't look drunk. How are you supposed to know? Smell his breath?
But this one woman who brought up the recklessness of getting in the car with a drunk driver concluded that it is a struggle to keep your children at top of mind when your hormones are racing. Even this woman was willing to give Diana the benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh, well, yeah, she didn't get in the car with a drunk driver, but her hormones were racing, and you know how that is.
She was Dodie-eyed.
Yeah. All right,
let's talk to some people who can relate to her problems on their own personal lives.
Yes, this is an absolute direct connection you have to make, because she had the problem and you had the problem. Dana, you're on the Johnny Kent Show.
Dana.
Oh, D-A-N-N-A. How else could I do it?
Baseball today, the pregame show. Larry talks to Pirate skipper Gene Lamont. We'll also have a chat with Montreal Expos catcher Gary Fletcher about tonight's start for Pedro Martinez. Bob Walker will have the lineup. We'll take a look at scores, Major League Baseball schedule, and standings, plus a couple of pregame traffic updates. That's all coming up here on the Pirates Baseball Network.
Young, sweet, innocent, 19-year-old girl, and my daughter is 20, and I can totally relate to a young, innocent girl. And he took this girl, married her, threw her into this life.
Did you feel unloved in your marriage?
No, it wasn't.
Oh. See, that's what I thought you were going to tell me, that your husband never loved you either.
No, but it infuriated me, and then I started watching her, and I thought to myself, I'm going to watch this girl and see what she does with her life. And what made me really relate to her is that she's a wonderful mother, and so am I, that I'm having a hard time after divorce, or did have a hard time after divorce.
You know what? I guess this is like the great chasm between a man and a woman. Of all the guys I know, I don't know any guy who looks to a famous man and says, that guy's going through the same thing I do.
Well, I didn't really do that. I didn't really look to her.
But that is a female thing, and I don't mean that as a, disrespectfully.
It's some sort of comparison, Dana. That's what John's saying. We don't usually see that.
Guys never do that, as far as I know. Maybe some do, but I'm not close to them, so I don't know about it.
But John and Ken, God made us different for a reason, right? I mean, you men are so different from us women. We're not supposed to be alike, and thank God we aren't.
Well, you know what the thing is? This Diana thing has made me realize just how. One thing about OJ made me realize in dramatic fashion how different white and black culture is. This Diana thing has made me realize how different male and female culture is.
Well, you know what?
I had no idea the depth of black anger, and I had no idea of the bond that women can make with figures like Diana.
You're right. I don't think I bonded with Diana. I think what happened was I was curious about her because I'm not a celebrity watcher. I could care less about all that garbage. But when I watched her and I saw what happened in her life, and I thought, let's watch her and see what happens to her. And when she came out of this, no longer a victim, and she actually did something very positive with her life and continued being a good person, I was impressed.
All right, Dana, thanks for the call. And it truly is legitimately important to Dana, how Diana's struggle. And I have yet to run into a guy that I know. I mean, a few guys have written me letters, but I don't know what kind of guys they are exactly. I do have a feeling some gay men probably felt just as strongly about this.
But there are some guys that probably hear you during the show and relate to you, I'll bet you. They're not walking around telling anybody, but... Well, I doubt if he died tragically, there'd be this...
I don't think there'd be this outpouring
in the parks from this.
No, if you want to get blubbering, you've got to have women connected to you. Although our audience, strangely enough, is more female than male, which, I'll be honest, baffles me a little. We started out, we had a large male component, and then over the years, as things have evolved, we end up with more women than men listening, which I like. But I guess I wish I understood females better than I do. But I guess I must, because otherwise we wouldn't have so many women listening.
I think it's also a component that when we started out, we were talking a lot more about politics and harder-edged issues that men like, and now with your kid and other things going on in our lives, we talk about that more. I think I'd like to hear that more.
Yeah. And maybe women are relating to me. But
the guys would relate to you only in the fashion of, well, there you go, John. Now he's doing his job, he's got his kid, another along the way, he's got his wife. John is like me. Men, actually, it's very important to men. Something you don't think about, men more than women, I think. It's very important that, you're a guy like me. Yeah. Women can relate more to the problems of another woman and either relate to the problems or if the woman is of a different class, kind of look down on the woman.
You mean men relate to the superficiality?
Yeah, a hard-working man, he's got a job, he's got 2 kids, he's
has a mortgage, has a car payment.
Yeah, not your feelings. Not relating to your feelings.
Right.
Unless your feelings would be you're baffled by women. They relate to those feelings.
Well, remember I told you, something, when I was a kid, Ken and I were both radio geeks when we were kids. And we'd listen to the big top 40 station in town, and we'd keep track of the, we didn't know each other then, but we both separately were keeping track of the hits as they go up and down the chart.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember there'd be these hit songs that would come out. And I didn't understand who listened to them.
Yes, you used to call them blubbering...
blubbering, weepy songs like Lionel Richie love songs, or the Commodores, or Barry Manilow, or just, a lot of blubbery love songs. And I'm thinking, because I was into, rock and roll stuff, like Bob Seger, Billy Joel, Bruce Springsteen. And so I tried around and I'd hear the hits, the station I listened to, they had the new chart every Thursday, and here's the new #1 song. There would be some trippy love song. It's like, oh man, who's into this? Who's listening to this? Who's buying this record? Stop buying this record. I don't want to hear this record anymore. And I had no idea, because I was a teenager, I had no idea that these stations were programmed for women. That women teenage girls were out buying these records. I thought everybody was like me. I had no idea there were all these women that radio stations program to, and these were women hit songs. That's why Lionel Richie was #1 every week with some stupid, drippy, goopy, loopy, swoopy.
Oh, I remember feeling the same way. I was a few years before you on the charts, but like when Roberta Flack started having her hits last time, I saw your face, whatever that song was.
Yeah.
Oh my God!
Who does this? Yeah. And it took me years later when I actually got into radio, and I learned, why records are picked, why certain stations play certain records. Like, oh, women are into this, huh?
That's right.
Oh, these are girl songs. Oh, I get it now.
In many cities, you have a radio station that plays very soft love songs that have a very heavily female audience.
Yeah, I know. But as a kid, it was like I was baffled. Like, who are these people? Who are these people?
Those Phil Collins drippy records that you
Phil
hate.
Collins. Oh my God!
We got a groovy shot.
Michael Bolton, that's another example.
It's a great example.
I think that's the latest example. There's always like one guy like that. Phil Collins or Michael Bolton or somebody with this overwrought emotionalism, and guys stand there going, where's the beat?
Oh yeah, the Lionel Richie records in the 80s. Say You, Say Me, Ballerina Girl.
Ballerina Girl.
There was a couple of Toto records you really hated, which I actually kind of like. But
well, yeah, because then we were disc jockeys. In the 80s, we were, 70s, I'm a kid listening to stuff. In the 80s, I'm a disc jockey playing this stuff.
I'll Get Over You.
I would skip all these records. I just wouldn't play them, I would always put them like in the back of the rack and hide them.
You were the boy. You were like the 8-year-old boy that want to get kissed by the girl.
I don't want to.
Yucky.
Well, I just got the feeling if I played like another goopy Lionel Richie record, nobody would listen. Nobody's listening to this. It's got to be a mistake. This is some computer error. This could not be #1. This will go away.
And now you stumbled into talking about things that women are interested in. How's that?
The irony of life. All right. We got a few more calls to take, and we will take them when we come back. This is the John and Ken Show.
At 6:48. And we'd like to remind you to catch Bruce Williams tonight at 7 on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI.
Hi, this is John and Ken.
And the number to call if you want to speak, 1-888-JOHN-KEN. That's 1-888-564-6536.
Here on the new Talk Radio 1230 FYI. Droves, at least according to 40 therapists interviewed in the New York area.
Is it by the droves or just in droves?
All right, in droves.
By the droves.
They were in court, but anyway, they spent hours and hundreds of dollars. I look at her Diana's life with therapists.
You look at her life, and I never looked at it closely enough to know this, but there's like 12 different problems going on for her there, past or present, and a lot of people picked one or more that they could relate to. Went into therapy, went to their therapist and said, wow, look at that.
It wasn't until this article I read that I started figuring it out. I spent the last 2 weeks in complete bafflement. I'm still baffled, but at least like there's a roadmap now in front of me, Let's go to Evelyn. You're on the John and Ken Show.
Yes. Hi. Thank you, John and Ken, for letting me vent my opinion.
Yes.
And with all due respect to the dead and Princess Diana, I beg to differ with the general opinion of our society, which I think is very sad. Basically, it boils down to misery loves company. And if you study the facts, we all have had problems. I had a bad childhood. I married a man with the same problem my dad had. I have a chronically ill daughter. I, too, have been in therapy to find out that what we need to do is deal with life, and we need to take the responsibility for. We have a big part in that, too.
Right. And you should be identifying with Diana here, according to this.
Well, yes, but it's
psychotherapist.
What the public doesn't see is that it's because of the royal family Diana became famous. It's because of Charles she has the 2 boys. And because of her bulimia, whatever, she was in therapy. And
you're not what I was looking for here, Evelyn. I was looking for somebody who relates directly with the same problem.
Everybody's calling us to analyze what we
I don't want to do that. No.
We don't care about the Diana family. And we want to hear about how you relate on a personal basis with some of her problems.
Yeah.
Well, apparently told our screen something else.
She's still talking. Look at that. Karen, you're on the John and Ken Show. Got less than a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, I was just going to say I identified only because when you saw her with her children, you can't fake that kind of love with her children. And I guess because I'm a mom, and face that women are stupid. And we get sappy over little things like that, according to you. You know?
I just don't. I'm baffled. I just stare a lot the last couple of weeks.
Don, face it, you'll never figure women out in this life. Don't even try.
All right, Karen, thank you very much for the call.
Not in this lifetime.
No. Yeah, I